Ambedkar's conversion. Please switch on the videos. And Deepika, you can answer.
Ambedkar's conversion was an act of defiance. He did not want to comply with Hinduism and casteism. So he chose to defy Hinduism, and that's how he got attracted to Buddhism. And for Gandhi, he was like, whatever religion you're born into, you have to stay in the religion. He did not support conversion. So that's the difference between Ambedkar and Gandhi. And conversion in general depends upon various factors. Say the status of the religion, the power that the religion has, the rulers who are currently ruling the province or the state. So these are the factors, and for some people like the tribals who as such did not have a religion, they got
as such they don't have a religion. You mean to say they don't have?
They have culture. Probably they had some milder version, but they were like many tribals with different.
What is meant by minor version of religion and a major version of religion?
So what I meant was probably there are fewer people belonging to each of the tribes, and there are like many tribes, many categories of tribes.
That's fine, but for a tribe, can you say a tribe has a minor religion?
So it depends upon
who are likely to be more religious between advanced society versus tribe?
So I'm not clear, sir, but I think one thing is they worship nature, tribals.
How about totems?
I am not clear.
Ancestral worship and sorcerers, shaman, all that is religion, right? So you can't say tribes have minor religion, isn't it?
Yes.
So how can you describe their religion versus other religions?
So say for Hinduism, the majority of the rulers were Hindus, in India at least.
No. How is tribal religion different from other religions? But other religions means in what sense? Other religions. Do you think we discussed in R1 and R2 what are the simpler forms of religion? Okay, various forms of religion: animism, animatism, totemism, nature worship, ancestral worship, religion, magic. All that is religious phenomena. Okay, so they are called primitive religions or tribal religions, as opposed to ours, which are called world religions. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity, Sikhism are world religions, not confined to one small society. So in the sense that the tribals have certain beliefs, gods and things like that, but they may not even have the idea that religion as distinct from other things. It is in that sense. So anthropologist is looking at a part of their culture, others' culture as a religion, but they may not have any such notion. Okay, but it does not mean that their religion is minor. It's not like that. So there's religion of a simple society. You can call it primitive religion, as opposed to world religions. So usually when we use the word religion, we mean world religions. But if you take world religion as the only religion, then the religion is not universal. Many simple societies may not have any religion. But then if you take religion as some kind of a supernatural belief system, then There is no society without religion. So these are the things we discussed in R1 and R2. Please, R1 and R2 are very important for your examination. Okay, R1, R2 we did. And then after that, after covering the general theory, in this recent session, we are taking Indian religions. Okay, but otherwise, religion plays a significant role in a simple society, but they may not even know that something is called a religion because they don't look at things separately. All of them are mixed up as parts of culture. Okay, so it is like that. Now, okay, you can continue. So you said about Gandhi and opinion and Ambedkar's opinion. Okay, that's true. Okay, now I ask you, um, is it, I mean, what is your opinion? That is Gandhi's and Ambedkar's opinion. Under what circumstances you want to change your religion, Deepika?
So for me, first thing, I don't agree with Gandhi's opinion that you have to stay in the religion that you were born into.
Okay.
Because as you evolve, you understand what you want, as in you know what is right, what is wrong. You cannot be attached to the religion you were born
You are
into.
born into. Wow.
So for example, I would say find Buddhism more attracted to.
Okay.
Mm, so it gives you a chance to explore, and
So to you, Buddhism is a much more better religion. What is your opinion?
so I would
Because
like.
even my favorite religion is Buddhism. I think you can see my classes are right up. I think it is more Buddhist. Okay.
So
But not Ambedkar's Buddhism.
the other thing I want to mention is, sir, you might like take some aspects of some, you might like mix things up from each religion, and
Religion.
you don't have to be confined to what is defined as a religion, as a
Ah,
particular.
very good. Don't you think that is one good thing Ambedkar did?
Um,
He redefined. What I wanted from Ambedkar was that instead of saying that Buddha was distorted, he could have said, no, I am disagreeing with Buddha. After all, he was a 6th century man and I am free to disagree. Instead of saying that everybody is misinterpreting, distorting Buddhism. I didn't like that stand. He is free to disagree with the soul, karma, rebirth, but then say that modern science doesn't support and Buddha was wrong and I'm updating the religion. That is to speak boldly. Say this is what Buddha may have said and I'm disagreeing. Not that Buddha was right when science is right and all the people who have been saying these things are wrong.
so the other aspect.
Disagree. You should disagree and then okay, please. So you are saying that you can get different elements from the religion and then have your own.
Yes, sir. It doesn't have to be
There
defined.
is somebody who tried some such a thing in history. Can you tell me who that person is?
Sir, Ambedkar did try.
No, Ambedkar chose only one religion and did interpret it differently. But did somebody try to take different aspects from different religions and then wanted to create a new one? And he's famous also. Akbar. Akbar wanted to bring different things in different from religions and wanted to create a new religion, but he failed. Okay. So you are saying that you can take different elements from different religions.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, I mean, which approach you are likely to follow? The last one.
So approach as in what?
What you would like to follow in distant future or in near future?
So I would like in my day-to-day life, I would like to follow. I don't want to be like labeled as something.
Wow, very good.
Because in the end it comes to what you do in your daily life, and what you believe in is what you do. So you don't have to be answering somebody why you're doing certain practices.
Wow. So if Hindus question, you say this is Muslim belief. If Muslims question, you say no, this is Buddhist belief. That is good. But then I said that we should found religions also. Why don't you be the first female to found a religion? Why should only men be founding religions? Let feminism be extended to religion also. These are all, men founded in religions. There is not a question from women. Why only men were founding religions and women also should found one. There is not a single religion founded by a woman.
So there are some female
Like,
gurus also.
hmm,
Like it's not a religion, but it's like a group. In Brahma Kumaris, we see many. I don't remember her name. There is a lady who.
no, there are some preachers, female preachers. Preaching is different from founding a religion. Brahmakumari is a part of Hinduism. I don't think they stood for any particular values. Maximum, it is a cult. I don't think they stood for any specific values, ideals. No.
So for me, religion, the objective according to me of religion, according to me, it has to be something which satisfies your spiritual purpose.
First,
It's
yes.
not something like an identity. For me personally, it is like
It
that.
is not solely. It is not just an identity.
Yes.
Wow.
So when you're saying that why don't you make a
Found
new
one. Hmm.
found one? So for me, it's like everybody has to like one can preach and they can like
Oh,
listen to different preachers and
wow. Great answer.
what they want
So
to
you
do.
don't intend to found, but when you preach and others follow, you automatically become a founder.
Yes, yes.
Wow. See, then you please watch what she is going to say. Uh-huh. So you don't intend to found one, but when you preach, when you say this is my philosophy and others follow, then you emerge as a founder. Wow, that's great. I don't know if you speak like this. What these people in the interviews? They went, my God, from which planet are you coming? But this is what freedom is. This is what freedom is. One should think freely. People think freely about economic ideologies, political parties, but they don't think about religion. But one should think freely about religion and debate, not just whom you vote, which kind of dress, capitalism versus socialism. What is all that? For decades, the world is debating capitalism versus socialism. Whole world history is about that. It's a small issue. People should debate on the nature of religion. What kind of religion should we need? Invent new ones, update the old ones, discard old ones. And if religion is being debated and discussed, I think everything about society will be debated and discussed. Because religion deals with core and more fundamental values. People are very protective. India should be Hindu. Why? Let India experience different religions. Or I'm born as a Muslim and so I will be. Not necessary. In fact, that's one good thing Ambedkar did. Just study religions and choose the right one. Fine. That should be the attitude. Not go on, interpret. What is this business of interpretation? You read Prophet just the way you read Socrates, you read Marx. We read Marx and discuss, criticize. Same thing about Gita, same thing about Bible. We read, discuss, comment on, and change, write new ones, create new ones. And if others find that what we are teaching or what we are writing is more profound and more important, then others also will follow or discover for themselves their own truth. But that's how it should be. In fact, that's what Buddha also taught. You be a light unto yourself. He didn't say that you should follow me. That is one of the things that Ambedkar liked in Buddha. He didn't say you should follow me. Nor he said that you should take me as granted. No. Anything Buddha said, according to him, is for questioning and thinking and reflection. And he did not claim any separate status that he is God or God's son or God's prophet. No. Whatever he achieved, whatever he understood, anybody can understand. These are all the things that Ambedkar liked. I suspect Jesus also said similar things only, but because Jesus was preaching in a completely different society where there was not enough of philosophical exposure, maybe he was misunderstood. That's what I understood from that movie, Man from the Earth. So Buddha was teaching to a society which is highly refined, cultured. There was so much of religious activity going on in India. So we need not equate India with Hinduism, and any conversion is an anti-national activity. Conversion is not an anti-national activity. Anything that is against the happiness of the citizens is anti-nationalism. If you are doing something that harms the citizens, then that is anti-nationalism. So religious composition can change. Okay. So that's how we can look at conversions. People will choose freely. That should be religious freedom and that should be secularism. Okay. Now, can you tell me, in terms of religious freedom, where India is not secular or secular? Who will talk? Sweta, you want to say something?
Yes.
There are the most serious provisions to say that this is not secularism.
So, like, I could say that in today's scenario, secularism is diminishing. As we see the riots leading.
No, not in recent years. But from the beginning, where can you see that this is not an aspect of secularism? Where is the bias? is the state pro-Hindu? I'm not talking about BJP, but from the very basis itself, Congress, Nehru.
On the reservation,
Reservation issue. Can you explain why? So what is that? So what is the reason? What is the issue?
reservation is on the basis of caste system, and caste is related to Hinduism.
Hmm.
But this is not there in other communities or other religion. Therefore, they do not get the reservation.
Don't you think that is protecting Hinduism?
Yes, sir.
I think this is a very, very serious project. In fact, Indian textbooks don't discuss this at all. One French author, Jeff Relot, talked about it. How can one lose reservation if one changes religion? Then there is no religious freedom. Do you know if Muslims are backward, one very significant reason is that Dalits among Muslims are not helped. Whereas Dalits among Hindus are helped. That is discrimination. Then some people even go to the extent of saying India is secular and that is why there should not be reservation on the basis of religion. Reservation is given when there is discrimination in the society. To undo it, reservation will be given. India doesn't believe in caste system. Constitution doesn't believe in caste system. That is why it goes for caste-based reservation. Reservation is to undo the society's treatment. So, extending reservations to Dalit even after changing the religion would make sense if the state is not favorable to Hinduism. So, I think this bias has been there all through. It is not because of BJP or RSS. It has been there all through. And this is least debated issue. Least debated issue. So two communities got affected, but more so Muslims. So first time they got any reservation is OBC reservation. That is good. Thank God they did not say caste exists only in Hinduism, and so there cannot be any OBC reservation. So that is one serious aspect of secularism, failure of secularism. So in a way, religious conversion is actively discouraged in India. Okay, in fact, people have to apply if they convert. The state has to certify, and it is not easily given. So it is difficult. So you can take it as Hindu bias. There is no doubt about it. There is an underlying current in this country. This is a Hindu state, but they are always proud of the fact that they are secular. I said that caste is the worst aspect of Hinduism and moksha is the highest aspect of Hinduism. But let me tell you, I have one more idea. The nature of Hindu mind. I think it is hypocritical if you ask me. Because because of the contrast, moksha and caste, these are two extremes that a Hindu doesn't know what to make of himself. So hypocrisy is more vulnerable to hypocrisy. That is my theory. But if you ask any Indian staying in America, they tell most people say that Americans are more honest and Indians are not. They say when Indian says something, one has to always think he is saying, but what does he mean? What may he may mean, or what does he say behind my back? Whereas they don't think like that regarding Americans. And incidentally, that also happens to be Americans' view of Indians, in the sense that Americans think Indians are very intelligent, but why do they speak behind others' back? This is an Indian habit. Not being honest with oneself or with others. Why? We have a baggage of we were great long ago, that this. But in fact, we are not. And so all kinds of things. I don't know if you are seeing it that way. I mean, what I'm saying is that Hindus proudly announce that they are secular and India is secular, but in fact, it is not secular. And on the top of it, they say because we are secular, we don't give reservations on the basis of religion. I don't know how people are able to take all these things. That's why there is something in Hindu mind, because there are contradictions in Hinduism. Sweeping contradictions. So that makes them more hypocritical. So surely India is not secular, but formally it wants to be secular and it has made itself a commitment. And then when Indians discuss secularism, they'd ask about Pakistan. What a state to compare. India should compare itself with a European country, with US. You can't compare with Pakistan and then say that is the standard comparison. See, Hindus there are worse than the Muslims here. Maybe, obviously. But Muslims here are being promised secularism. So Pakistan can't be a comparison to India. European state, US, advanced countries should be compared. And then are we secular? That's how we should compare. Not with Pakistan. So there is an underlying thinking that this is for Hindus and others are allowed or tolerated. Others are just being allowed. They're given freedom, it seems. They're given freedom. Hindus have given freedom to Muslims. It is essentially Hindu state. Okay. So, of course, even taking secularism as an ideal, at least formally, is of course better than saying better than saying ideologically that we are not secular or theocratic. But then saying that we are secular doesn't make a country secular. We have to examine secularism in the light of evidence. So conversion, whether what you are doing to the conversion. And then there are Supreme Court which said that there cannot be any allurement or force to promote conversion, economic incentives. That's true. If there cannot be economic incentives to promote conversion, there cannot be economic incentives to stop conversion. Reservation is an economic incentive. Economic incentive to stop conversion. So surely the nature of the state is not really equality towards all religions. There is an underlying basis in our discussion that this is essentially Hindu state and we are allowing others to be free. We are tolerant like that. That is the underlying sentiment. This is ours. Only when we think this is ours, we tend to think we are tolerant towards others. Isn't it? When we think this is for everybody, then we are not likely to think we are tolerant. Okay. So, reservation is a very serious issue. Not giving reservations. Okay, of course, recently things became much worse. That's a different issue. We're just looking at the foundation itself. So, ideal, what we stated as an ideal and what we practice are not one and the same. Okay. So, that's about religion and convictions. Now, tell me, now coming to this lesson, can you tell me what is the nature of religion in Northeast India before colonialism? So, who will do that? Supraja, did you read?
Yes, sir.
I mean, what kind of idea you have about religion in Northeast India before colonialism? Tell me which religions were there?
Before colonialism, there were states and stateless societies.
Exactly. Please pay attention to states and stateless societies. What is meant by stateless society?
There was no power, no authoritative,
There is no center.
no administration.
There is no center. No king, no council. Definitely no army. They are stateless societies. So there were states as well as stateless societies. Yes, that is one. States and stateless society is one, and hills and plains is another. Hills and plains. Can you tell me which is more inaccessible between hills and plains?
Hills.
Hills are likely to, yes. Hills and plains, hills are likely to. So states and stateless, hilly areas. Okay. Okay. Then what were the religions?
Primitive religions.
Primitive religions. That's one. What are the world religions in the Northeast?
Christianity.
No. Pre-British.
Hinduism.
Hinduism.
Buddhism.
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 Islam also.
Yes.
Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. And of course, some no religion at all. That's primitive religion. Okay. Can you tell me if Hinduism went to something like Northeast, okay, how would that go? For example, I said that Manipur, a chunk of population in Manipur, reasonable number, we will be discussing them separately. Now, two states we will be discussing separately. One is Nagaland and another is Manipur. Okay, we look at the nature of the state and ethnicity in those two. Okay. So tell me, how would Manipur become, I mean, Manipuris become Hindus? Or you want to introduce Hinduism in Latin America, or some part of Latin America becomes Hindu. How will that be possible? Any idea?
Sir?
Nikhil, you want to say something?
Sir, I just wanted to make a guess based on the reading of your passage.
Yes.
Like the goddess Kamakhya, it was mentioned. So taking it and including it as the wife of Shiva. So something like that.
No, you have read it, but I'm
ground.
asking some other question. But you try use
Yes,
this
sir.
understanding.
Yeah,
In
I'm
Latin
saying
America, Nikhil, you are given the responsibility by a Madhadipati. You go and spread Hinduism in Latin American island. Tell me how you will go about it. You may use your understanding of Northeast.
So first I would
Peethadipati gave you the job.
First, I would understand Latin America's existing religion and existing systems, and I would try to find out where all it is overlapping with some of the ideas of Hinduism and some of the ideas we have in Hinduism. And then I think like somehow going there and talking to people and somehow like trying to tell them how Hinduism is more purer version of the religion they are.
How is Hinduism purer than others?
So we will find out from there only, sir. I think. Like
but you
maybe
how will you tell them that Hinduism is purer?
I don't have.
Okay. Somebody is convinced. Say somebody is convinced. Then what is he supposed to do?
So if someone is convinced with the idea, and of course, then I would come out
without explaining what is the idea. But anyway, you can proceed. Okay.
someone is convinced with the like actually. So I think people are not convinced with actually a religion, but like some of the dogmas or some of the things, some of the practices of the religion.
So what is he supposed to do?
So I will introduce them to some of the like karma kand, some of the practices of the religion, which some of the puja, some of
you will introduce some gods and some practices.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Some pujas, some dhyan techniques, some things which they will find amusing or working with them.
But how about
some
their
of the magical, sir?
How about the caste?
I think, introducing caste can be a tough thing because then you will have to find a hierarchy and then you have to match according to it. If there is something hierarchy similar which is existing in our society, if it is there, then it is easier to introduce caste, but otherwise it is, I think, difficult.
Otherwise, you can't introduce caste.
Yes, sir. And I think Hinduism can go without caste also, sir.
Have you come across cases where Hinduism went without caste?
Sir, I don't know, but the like Buddhism somehow evolved.
No, I'm talking about Hinduism only. Hinduism without caste.
No, I have not come across it.
Then how can you? So that Madhadipati will be offended. How dare you introduce something without caste and call it Hinduism?
But sir, Hinduism is just not about caste. That is what I think.
Then how can you?
It is one of the evil of Hinduism, but it is not just about the caste.
It is not about the caste. Then why did Hinduism?
It is not just about the caste. Sir. There is
okay. But then why did caste and Hinduism both went hand in hand?
So countries where Hinduism is there, say Indonesia and other areas, would you say caste existed even there?
Yes, where was Hinduism without Hinduism, not just temples and things like that? So where was Hinduism? Where were Hindus to say that we don't have caste?
So would you term even the foreigners who practice Hinduism in India?
It is a completely different thing. Some people are very few isolated cases coming under some cults like Hare Krishna movement and things like that. Few cults. Okay, let me tell you how Hinduism spreads. The way he said, in fact, that is how Christianity spreads. You go out with a commitment and study their religion and say how you are superior and then give Christianity to people. In fact, that is how every religion spreads, but Hinduism is different. Hinduism, some people take to Hinduism and given some varna. And then these people practice untouchability and create another varna like this. Hinduism goes by a top-down approach. Some people announce that they are Kshatriyas or Brahmins and start following purity norms, and others become caste that way, and then others will discriminate. That is how Hinduism spread. It's very, very bad way of spreading. And then see, he said, if there is no hierarchy, what do you do? If there is no hierarchy, then the entire group is given a caste. That is how many tribals are absorbed. If there is a hierarchy, give 2 castes. If there is no hierarchy, then give to that group 1 caste. 1 varna in the beginning, and later it may be caste. But remember, you only ethnographic reality is caste and not varna. Varna is only a label. So through discrimination, purity norms, Hinduism spreads. In fact, there is no way by which a person can choose to be Hindu unless very recently some ceremonies are devised. It is about groups. In Manipur, kings took up Vaishnava cult. And then they declared themselves as Kshatriyas. And they started discriminating others. And so it spreads. But not everybody in Manipur became like that. Then what happens to gods? Their gods and Hindu gods may be interlinked. If she is a goddess, that goddess can be married to a Hindu god. So there will be give and take. It is not that entire Hinduism will be imposed on them. There will be give and take. So their religion will be changed. Okay, so there will be some changes to the religious structure, belief system, but the way it spreads is like this, top down and through caste. And in this process, a saint may help. A saint may inspire people to view the superiority of a religion. And especially if the saint is coming from a religion that belongs to rulers. For example, Vaishnava cult, Vaishnava spread more because Hinduism, Hindu rulers were there around. And Islam spread through Sufi saints, and Christianity spread through Christian missionaries. So there are some religious specialists backed by power. Backed by power, because power is a kind of attraction. So Hinduism spreads through top-down hierarchy, caste allocation, and varna system. And gods managed. Kamakshi was tribal goddess, but tribal goddess was linked to Hindu myth of Shiva. That's how Shaivism spread. So religion, supernatural things are manipulated, and the caste is used. Purity and pollution norms. This is how Hinduism spread in Manipur, and then in other parts of Assam also. But not that everybody took it up. People in hilly areas, they did not. Lower levels, they did not. And that was then, because they didn't take up, then the Christianity came. When Christianity comes, Christianity does differently, not like this. Christian approach is bottom-up approach. They approach the vulnerable, usually. And they say Jesus is the savior. And also Christian missionaries are more committed. They go to hilly regions, remote areas also, and they convert people. It is a bottom-up ideological belief spreading, and individuals can become Christians. That is how Christianity spread in Northeast. And during the British rule, some tribes were giving problems. So the British went for what is called inner line permit. And only Christian missionaries were allowed inside the inner line. And so they had a free hand. And tribals were primitive. They didn't even have an idea that they had a religion. And the state was imposing certain cultural practices. And they lost certain tribal revolts. So they were having problems, and then the Christian missionaries offered education, health, and a better treatment, better life, better view of life. And that's how so many simple societies of Northeast India got converted to Christianity. So top down versus bottom up is one crucial difference. One needs caste and another doesn't. Egalitarian. Islam also is egalitarian. But all had state support. Christianity spread during colonialism, Islam spread during Islamic rule, and Hinduism spread during Hindu rule. Buddhism spread during Buddhism, during Buddhist rule. So conversion is also related to power of the state, power of the ruler. Another thing is Christianity spread is like introducing modernization, education, health, peace, okay, non-violence, ethical literature, getting along, compassion. There are many highly valuable Christian traditions, theories, values, and all of them are introduced. So that is why I didn't find anything wrong in tribals getting converted to Christianity. And then because they are modernizing, you can see its impact on literacy, education, employment, huge opportunities, much, much better off. So if lower caste persons or the tribes becoming Christian would hugely contribute to their empowerment, their participation in economy and politics. So it is non-discrimination. Okay, now Nikhil, you have something to say.
Sir,
Do you understand the difference?
yes, sir. And you have mentioned this also in the write-up also, the
That is
Hinduism.
true.
I just forgot it. Sir, about this Christianity spread, sir, I was wondering that all these benefits of health, education, and other benefits are given in the societies.
Yes.
But this is on the condition that one converts to Christianity. Why is like conversion such an important thing for like if someone wants to do good for the society?
No, sometimes it was it was a part of Christianity, but sometimes it was not. So many people got educated in Christian missionary schools. There was no condition. In fact, India's elite was schooled in Christian missionary schools only. Who are the leaders of the freedom struggle? All even till few years ago, good school meant missionary school, convent. Good school means English school and missionary school. They didn't force religion. So only in the case of tribals where they didn't even have the sense of religion, which meant entire cultural change, many tribal practices, particularly among Nagas, headhunting, all kinds of violent practices were there. So they changed everything. In fact, missionaries had the idea that they were converting, but the tribals didn't even have the idea that they were converting. Okay, so if a person is already belonging to one standard religion, world religion, then that is conversion. But sometimes in the case of tribals, there is no standard religion. That is not world religion at all. So they don't have the idea of conversion. But of course, missionaries know that they have the idea of conversion. In fact, that is how anthropologist is different from Christian missionary. Anthropologist follows the principle called cultural relativism. Don't impose your ideas. Examine, find out, help. But missionary is not like that. Missionary offers whole package. But it is not true that they did not help when people were not willing to convert. No. At the time of independence, after 150 plus years of British rule, it was only less than 2% at the time of their leaving. And which means they did not use power to convert people. And whoever were converted, they were from the lower caste or tribes. Upper caste conversion took place long ago, I think during Portuguese rule in Goa, and or Saint Thomas converted during Saint Thomas visit. It was not due to British colonialism. So British colonialism was primarily economic agenda, not religious agenda. So these are all the qualifications one needs to think that they did not intend to convert. But of course, if not for their power, Christianity wouldn't have spread. If not for colonialism, Christianity would not have spread in remote areas of the world. There's no doubt about it. But that is different from saying that the state is converting them. State is not converting them. Okay. But for us, it's all the more important to see the differences in the kind of conversion. Hindu conversion is different from Christian conversion. In fact, Hindus don't have way of individually taking to religion. It is a group spread because it is an ancient and old religion. It is not founded by one person so that he can discover this is the method to convert. No. Groups and groups being absorbed into Hinduism. And when they are being absorbed, they become castes. It is like that. So tribes becoming caste is Hinduism. N.K. Bose, which we will discuss later, he talked about Hindu methods of tribal absorption. Hindu methods of tribal absorption. Okay. So groups get absorbed. Tribes get absorbed and that become Hindus. People in India have the view that people born here are Hindus and Christians and Muslims are the people who got converted. That is not true. Hinduism also involves conversion. People born here are primitive, people belonging to primitive religions. Okay, but then Aryans came, they have a particular religion and then mixed up and converted to Hinduism. So Hinduism also involved conversion, but it was not individual conversion, groups and groups conversion. And also it was not some gods imposed, it is gods interacting. If you remember, that's what Gure said, it is accommodation process. Accommodation. Okay, people accommodate in all kinds of ways, but definitely Vedism is at a higher and a superior level. Okay, but then Hinduism changed so much. Rama, Krishna, they are not Aryan, they are not Vedic gods. They came elsewhere. So the nature of Hinduism is different. When it spreads, it accommodates, it transforms, all kinds of things happen to Hinduism. Okay, so it's so diverse. In fact, people talk about how tolerant Hinduism is. That tolerance is because of this. This is how it proceeds in the first place. It keeps on absorbing people, taking something from it. But remember, tolerance of Hinduism is not about tolerance towards Hindus. It's a strange thing about Hinduism. Hinduism is tolerant of beliefs, but not towards people. Isn't it so? Untouchability is the most atrocious thing. How can we say Hinduism is tolerant? Okay. Tolerant towards beliefs, or any belief is possible in under Hinduism, including you are God. Okay. But tolerance is not towards caste, purity. So Hinduism is different from other religions. Okay. It is different because it is by nature, it evolves through absorption process. It evolves through absorption process. It goes on accumulating, absorbing and ranking. So caste and Hinduism go side by side. There cannot be Hinduism without caste. Okay. So coming to Indonesia, some people were Hindus, maybe later they became Muslims, Christians, like that. Okay, but I'm sure that when they were Hindus, they belonged to a Varna. Otherwise, there is nothing like belonging to Hinduism. Okay. So in many countries, Hindus were few, and then later Islamization took place, and many Hindus may have been converted to Islam. Right. Okay. So Christianity spread is different from Hinduism spread, and Islam spread is closer to Christianity spread. But Islam, we will look at it differently. There are no missionaries like in Islam, like in Christianity. Okay. But then do you see the impact of Christianity is not Christianity as a religion, it's a modernization force. What are all these values? These are the values that came from the West. Okay. So you can say the colonialism spread modernization rather than Christianity. See, by the time of colonialism, religion is separated from other things. So there Christians picked up so many values, democracy, liberalism, so many ideologies, education. They're not only Christians. So what colonialism gave us is westernization, not Christianity. Westernization. Everything that we are doing is hugely westernized. Democracy, technology, industrialization, freedom, equality. So the Indian Constitution is Western Constitution, westernized. Not much to do with Hinduism as such. Where is Hinduism in the preamble? Nothing. Okay. So that's how Christianity is different. Okay. And another thing is from administration point of view, from the state point of view, British rule was primarily geared towards income, taxation. They were interested in managing tea estates in Assam. Okay, they are not interested in other things. But then these tribals were giving troubles. They were right into tea estates and create trouble. And it was in this context they felt that the tribals need to be controlled, but in a different way. So they have gone for a different kind of administration. And so that's how most areas of Northeast did not go through the regular administration. We'll do them in detail when we do on the tribal part. Okay, so they had an inner line and inner line permit. Only missionaries were allowed inside the inner line, and they did it. So in that sense, there is a separation maintained, and demography is preserved, culture is preserved, and around that time, Christianity is introduced. Of course, Indian history textbooks wrote in a different way. This is a divide and rule. There's nothing like that. They were not one to begin with, for the British to divide. They were not one to begin with. They were different. Okay. So that was how Christianity spread in the Northeast. Okay. And then did a lot of open education, scripts, writing scripts, providing literacy. Okay. Tell me any questions on what we covered till now on Christianity in Northeast. Any questions on methods? And then it also says the way Christianity spreads is they just try to see what are the, like he will explain, what is the existing belief system and what is Christian belief system. So be it naming, beliefs, they try to make it compatible. And when it is compatible and when there are other needs, religion spreads fast and sometimes it doesn't spread. So there are uneven cases of spread. So they try to make it compatible. Certain things they ban, certain things they leave. So that they want the people to maintain their own identity. They are not simply Christians. They are Angami Christians. They were Ao Christians. Okay. They maintain their identity plus Christian. But how do they maintain their identity? Only when they have certain cultural traditions on their own. So they have certain cultural traditions to maintain identity, and then there is Christianity. Okay. So they become Christians, but at the same time they retain identity. Of course, they are far more sophisticated compared to Hindus converting others. These Hindus, no way, there is no system of conversion in the first place. So they are more educated, more advanced, more connected. Okay. They study a lot. For example, creating scripts is not easy. Developing scripts is not easy. More scholarly. Okay, more committed. So that's how they did an artist. That's how Christianity spread. Okay, but then when it spread, which finally meant that in Northeast you have Christians also, not that everybody became Christian. So you have Buddhists, you have Hindus, you have Muslim, and now Christians. You have hills and you have plains. Okay. And also some simple primitive religion that also is there. And then you have ethnic groups. Nagas, Aos, Angamais, Kukis, ethnic groups. So you have ethnicity, you have religious diversity, you have geographical diversity. So Northeast is a very, very diverse system. Okay. So tell me, till independence, is it clear to you? This is pre-colonial and colonial. Any questions? Any questions, Sunil?
No, sir.
Supraja?
No, sir.
Okay. Now post-independence. See, the author wants to say, okay, I didn't include author's name, right? Because I took articles from it's based on 2 articles. Okay. So here it is said that, okay, I may give the numbers later because we will be doing them in detail later. Northeast. Christianity spread more post-independence. Why? Because indigenous Christianity developed during the colonial times. And there was no encouragement to foreign missionaries in post-independent India. But then, by then it was developed, and then they converted more number of people. But why were there more conversions in post-independent India? Because Christianity became more like an identity to various groups. Hindus became rulers, and various tribes wanted an identity which is distinct from Hinduism, and Christianity was serving the purpose. So remember all this in the first place because they did not have one world religion before. We're talking about a tribal's conversion to Christianity, not Hindus' conversion and Muslims' conversion. It's tribal's conversion. So they didn't have any world religion. So meanwhile, they got educated. In fact, if you visit a place like Nagaland, you find it difficult. It is a part of India. So the dress is Western, music Western, churches. You doubt whether it is India or not. It's like that. And of course, their appearance is Mongoloid, fair complexion, beautiful. So they're so different. Wonder whether this is it's a part of India. That's why when you go on to thinking that no, you are dreaming, you are going to serve India and like that. So you go to Northeast, they take you as a colonial administrator. You know, when you read all these things like modern India, you think colonialism gone and you are people's administrator. That's how you write your answers in ethics and essay also. But in fact, you are taking your examination to be a colonial administrator. So try to find out about the British collectors, British governor generals. What is their attitude towards people? I mean, they may be a right emulation for you. Definitely in some states in Northeast. Because people don't think that you are one among them. Huge distrust. And army and police are not meant to protect the people. They are meant to protect the officers from the people. An IPS officer may find it difficult. Just go for a walk. Who knows who will kill you? Okay. So your image is that you are going to serve people and your ancestors fought against the British and things like that. But in fact, you are going to be a part of the establishment which is anti-people. Okay. Of course, you belong to a states where administration is not seen alien, but there are some states in India like that. Northeast is one such. Okay, Nagaland, Manipur, many states. Okay, So like a colonial administrator. So these tribes needed a particular kind of a distinct label, and Christianity supplied that. Why did they need? I mean, the way they took Indian rule is that they took Indian rule as Hindu rule. Hindu rule, because foreigners are always foreigners. They were here for some time and they left. But Hindus were not going to leave, right? Hindus would be here only. So, and historically there was hostility between Hindus and others. I mean, others and Hindus, others tribes. But now Hindus claimed, or the rest of India claimed, inheritance to all the territories that the British ruled. For example, on what basis people from UP claim control over Nagaland? What is the connection? But that is how democracy operated. Somebody from UP becomes Prime Minister of India, and then he says he has control over Nagaland. How? I mean, do you see that? Do you see the anomaly? How can a man from UP have control over Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram? Were they historically connected? No. Culturally connected? No. Man from UP can control Bihar, that is understandable. Because many from UP controlled Bihar, people from Bihar controlled even many parts of South India, though they may not have controlled Trivandrum and things like that. So because Indian kings expanded, contracted, so that's part of culture. But how can somebody from UP, Bihar control people from Mizoram? Why should Mizoram people feel loyal to somebody here? Don't you think the whole thing is artificial? Yes or no?
So can you repeat once again?
Now, how can people from Mizoram feel that they can be controlled by a man from UP? You can say, after all, Mizoram people also took part, but first they may not have wanted to take part. And anyway, whatever the way they take part, they are not going to affect outcomes in India. Will they have any impact on who will be the Prime Minister? Any impact on law? No. So these are the so-called problems of national integration. So mainstream Indians think in terms of national integration and the problems, whereas Mizoram and the people like that, they think in terms of Indian domination and what do we do. They are not worried about national integration. And in fact, we impose our lessons on them also. I think civil service aspirants from Mizoram also have to write about problems of national integration. So they have to write UP's problems as their problems. So it is not that the constitutional makers did not know this. So their idea is that create a decent system. Let people like the system. Let it not be forced. So that is the reason why that preamble is so radical. Democracy, socialism, secularism. So offer something that they should like, because otherwise there is really no reason to like and no justification to force. So that's why India is a highly artificial. The only way to manage is through higher ideals. And preamble is one such. Don't force your religion. Don't force your culture. Don't impose your power. Give as much power as possible, because they were never part of this. They had no reason to be part of it, and left to themselves, they don't want to be part of it. So it's so completely artificial that unless you offer a fair system, the things won't work. That is the understanding. So that is the reason why preamble has to be a radical document. Only at a very higher level of ideals you can accommodate others. Otherwise, no. So Britishers were ruling. Britishers were ruling because they had huge power. And then suddenly Congress comes up and then says the whole thing is India. How? How did that become India? Only Burma was exempted. Sri Lanka here. Okay. So how can these people claim? So it is in that context, Christianity provided a kind of identity. We are different. We are Christians. And colonialism provided a kind of unity also. Colonialism provided unity for everybody. We discussed how Indians became one. Agriculture destroyed and many things. Common problems, common solution, common fight. So that was how we became one, they became one. So, and take for example, the entire democratic arrangement gives not only in Delhi versus the Northeast, but within the Northeast also. Say for example, Nagaland, suppose Nagaland is one state as of now. One person from a tribe becomes the chief minister to control other tribes, the tribes which were historically hostile with one another. So how can other tribes accept the leader from this, a man from this tribe as the common leader? That's the issue. So which means Northeast is a challenge, not only as India versus Northeast, but within a Northeast itself. There is a lot of ethnic diversity. So ethnic diversity, religious diversity. So we are going to.
Sir, one question. So you said that people should go for religion they want.
Religion they want.
But religion provides a privilege, and that's why people go. But doesn't here we see that religions which have more economical and political power will dominate ultimately?
No, please make it.
Okay.
Religions?
Sir, people go for conversion only when they find a privilege for themselves.
Yeah, yes.
Right? Yeah. So won't it happen ultimately that some religions which have political and economic power?
That is true. Power was helping, but then we should also try to create a religion. We should also go for the framework of constitutionalism, democracy, religious freedom. Power will impact. We are going to look at that also. So what should it be in a democratic context is what we are thinking. Earlier, power played a role. Power contributed to religion. But now we accepted democracy and equality, and within that, religious freedom. That's what we're saying.
But even then, won't people go only for one religion which is providing everything for them?
Definitely. That is why democracy is not a perfect system. Democracy is not perfect. There is difficult to prevent democracy from becoming majoritarianism. Democracy is not perfect. So definitely in India's case, but I don't think in India's case, take for example India's case. In India's case, I don't think people would like to be Hindus because of if freedom is given. People would like to opt out of Hinduism. Isn't it so? I mean, what is your estimate? Suppose people are given complete freedom, which means reservations even after religious conversion. Do you think more people would join Hinduism, or people from Hinduism would leave?
They would leave.
They would leave.
My-
Why? Because it is this is not a religion which is good only for upper caste and also cows. It's a religion only for upper caste and cows. Why should others take this? See, if the reservations are continued even after the conversion, don't you think there would be many conversions from Hinduism? Yes or no? Sunil, unmute and tell me.
Yes, sir.
Which means the state is using its power to maintain an unequal religion. Isn't it so? Religion which is not fair to huge chunk of population.
Sir, aren't these issues already taken up? Aren't these issues already, I mean, those who are ruling know about these issues, that this would happen ultimately?
That is
I mean,
true.
they won't
Yes,
they know, don't they know that?
You are right. You are right. You are right. You are right. You are of course right. So that is true. Hindus are ruling and they are protecting their religion. That's all. That is true. You are 100% right. So power is used to preserve. You are right. Is used to preserve. But we're just exposing our hypocrisy, nothing more than that. But in this process, we need to know how the state works. Because we need to know whether we are just using power, or we are really following ideology. So these are not the ways to know. These are all the ways to know that this is not really truly secularism that we are following. It's power. Hinduism backed by Hindu power. Very much. So we'll see what it means. Okay, but let me tell you, to be fair on the framework of the constitution, they were trying to offer very good framework, the best. They wanted to include people on the basis of consensus. And I don't think there is anything in the constitution as such which says no to religious freedom or no to conversions. Isn't it? That is how constitution worked. What prevents extending reservations to Dalits? Like nothing prevented extending reservations for OBCs. The same thing could have done to Dalits also. So it's not the constitution, but the way the constitution is worked.
Essentially, they bring out acts instead of, since it's not in the constitution.
That is true. That's true. It's like that. You are right. Okay. So we are exposing and critically analyzing, and this is the truth. But then it goes like an accepted statement when you say India is secular, India is tolerant, Hindus are tolerant, and all kinds of things. Okay. So fine. Good. Thank you. Any other questions? Supraja, you are asking something?
Yes, sir.
Please.
I don't think so that if reservation is given for other religions also, that Hindus will get converted, because maybe Hindus are so much habituated with the culture and traditions.
No. I am talking about Dalit reservation. Dalits losing reservation when they become Christians and Muslims. I'm talking about Dalits only.
Dalits are also so much habituated.
You mean to say Dalits won't convert? Dalits won't.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. They are habituated and they hate it. So they want to change. You mean to say Dalits are
Sir, if you
habituated
see,
and so they don't want to change? Wow, we have to come across such people.
if you see Dalit,
Anyway, my prediction,
Yes, sir.
Ambedkar education is going to be much more popular than what it is today. Okay,
Dalits
please
who are
continue.
NRI, Dalits who are NRI, like who are living abroad, they are still following Hinduism. I mean, they pray gods, they follow culture, tradition, they post pictures. So
That's true.
Hinduism is more like culture and entertainment, and I feel so.
That is true. That is there. But you know, the conversion is also a way of revenge. Way of revenge against the upper caste. Don't you think so?
Now I think in these days, I think they won't
Not in
be,
these
they don't
days.
want to take revenge.
No, these days they were in a position to express revenge. But when did they not have revenge? You know, actually at many places, Christian missionaries were threatened and Muslims have no hope of converting others. Threatened that they should not convert anybody. There is no freedom. There is simply no religious freedom. There is no freedom to convert. Christian missionaries can't do really actively, but VHP can do anything. That's about informal force, but for loss of reservation is enough. Loss of reservation is enough not to think of conversion to Islam and Christianity. First of all, why will anybody think of conversion to Islam when Muslims are feeling harassed? So that is ruled out. So conversion can come as an act of defense. In all likelihood, Ambedkarite Buddhism is going to be much, much more popular. In fact, Kanshiram wanted to go for en masse conversion, but died just before that. And Mayawati was saying that once he becomes prime minister or some such thing, she will go for conversion. So 2-3 pushes will make huge difference. So lower castes have revenge, have hurt, and they deserve better religion. Upper caste, that's not the problem of the upper caste. Problem of Hinduism is not the problem of the upper caste. It is the problem of the lower caste. Patriarchy is not a problem of man. It's a problem of woman. Isn't it? It is man's privilege. So the vulnerable thing about Hinduism is this inequality. They have to use all kinds of power to retain lower caste in Hinduism. Otherwise, they have no reason to be with it. This is a serious issue. But we'll come back to this in a different way and what these people want. Vishal, you want to say something?
Sir, yes, sir. So adding on to what you mentioned about not able to convert to Islam. So even in Dalits who are Christians, but on book they are Hindus, they cannot officially be Christians and be NSC. So even that route is cut off. The only way is towards the Ambedkarite Buddhism. So I also feel in future it's going to take a lot of traction.
Push from 2-3 people. Actually, it could have happened. Just push. It will happen.
But
So
I think there is
all the political leaders, Ambedkar who is going to have a great future. It's going to be like idol in many temples.
I think there is a push, but the negative kind of push, as in because of the rise in atrocities perpetuated by the.
That's true. That's true. Even Ambedkar also was a negative push, not because he was attracted to Buddhism only as a positive thing. He was deeply hurt. In fact, he wanted reform Hinduism. He took part in temple entry movement also. Pune Pact, failure, then temple entry, and he understood that Gandhi was not keen. Finally fed up. It was push factor. If he was interested only in things like Nirvana, Hinduism has so much to offer. Buddha was already there in Hinduism. You don't need to go separately. Fine. We'll meet on Monday. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good.